Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to SP Reviews, where today I have the pleasure of reviewing another track from an act named Sweet Lily Love, titled, excuse me for a moment, Nuit. I've been recommended and advised, it's like no with two O's, Nuit. It's a hard one. It's like an Egyptian goddess or something like that. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on Music B. We're going to listen through it from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Oh, that's really loud off the top, but I don't mind that at all. I love everything that's going on here. We're going to break it down in a moment though. It's very powerful. It's very powerful off the bat. Like, I like the sidechaining kicks in the mix and the little sort of synth, the kind of Euro trance arpeggiators and lasers we had there were fairly dope. The whoosh coming in and out, that automation there was fun to listen to as well. Great pulsating oscillation going on there with those synths. That's kind of unusual and not. I'm trying to sort of figure out. I'm trying to figure out if that sidechaining is too much at this point in time. Like, I hear it, and that could be just a stylistic thing. I think if you're going for that effect, you want to have the thing on top that was kind of swirling around in terms of the automation of the panning, that kind of flanger kind of thing, that lead on top. And that would need to be separate from the sidechaining of the rest of the mix. Yeah, but I think everything is... I mean, I love everything that's going on here. It's fantastic, it's euphoric, exactly what I want from Sweet Lily Love. Happy New Year, by the way. Yeah, it sounds like there's a little bit too much sidechaining going on. So, what I'm going to do this year, it's like my unofficial New Year's resolution, is to talk about something and then move on. Just so I can focus on the rest of the elements, because I feel like if I go on about something the whole review, it's not fun, is it? I think that the changes in the rhythm of the percussion is really swell. I think that key change there, was that a key change or a switch to a different sort of bassline concept was cool? It's very heavily limited though. It's very trippy and psychedelic, I suppose, is another way of looking at it. You know, again, we clearly have our post-production down, like the automation of those things going from the left to right in the stereo field. We understand our musical digital audio workstations. I think that concept was reasonably well executed. I couldn't get all the words clearly, but I still enjoyed like the vocal melodies that we had there on top of that, and the crescendo of those snare drums coming up there, and the filtering that was going on. I think that was great. I clearly understand we have to have differences in the energy levels through a track like this, especially when it is this kind of in your face. I mean, when you look at these, the album art, here. You can see all these stars and everything like that. And I think that that makes a lot of sense with it. I think that's gorgeous. Oh, there's a fade out there, and that's nice. That's a nice way to finish things out at 4:28. Nuit. Man, I'm struggling with that. At least one of the dozen ways I'm not trying to be sort of like facetious, by the way. I'm trying to genuinely get the hang of it. Nuit. Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about this one. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track, Nuit, by Sweet Lily Love. What is this track about? I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, if Nuit is like the goddess of the sky or something like that, and we're talking about taking my hand and going into the stars above and everything like that, I assume it's becoming one with the universe. Is that the kind of vibe we're going for here? I could be wrong. I probably am wrong, but I'll own that. You know, I'm a big boy, I can keep my big boy pants on, I'll own that stuff, you know. That's what I thought the track was about after listening to it. So I suppose, if anything, if I've gotten that completely wrong, and again, I'm not being facetious here, I'm being genuine. If I've gotten that wrong, then that's potentially your average listener's perspective. I think that we had, the vocal melodies were good. I liked how we went to a head voice for some of the more sort of shimmery parts in between the verses, or sort of like storytelling bits there, because it was almost like another synth player that worked around the rest of the really pretty parts of the track. I think that the sung parts where we were telling a story were good. There was not as much dynamic range or room to breathe as I would have liked for the vocals to have had in the song. I think that potentially affected the presence and the clarity of the vocals in the mix. I think that they were EQ'd properly, but I think part of it could potentially have been the issue where we had a song where the kicks were kind of coming in, or whatever was causing that chord note pulse to come in. It was just kind of warping the entirety of the film of the song as we went, and that was a little bit detrimental to the listening experience, in my opinion. I understand that sidechaining of kicks is a fundamental part of a lot of different types of EDM. I'm not saying that it was the wrong decision, just subjectively and personally, for me listening through this track, I personally feel as though we could have potentially maybe reworked it a little bit, rejigged it so that we had a little bit less interference from the kicks, so that the vocals weren't necessarily as affected by it. I've listened to Sweet Lily Love stuff in the past, and I feel as if the mixing and mastering has had a better balance with the kicks than this one. But and then again, this could be a stylistic preference. Maybe we wanted to have that fluctuation, that oscillation as us going through time and space or something like that. Maybe we wanted it something that sounds sort of like trippy and again psychedelic, kind of unusual, sort of out of this world sort of like transition, and that's fine too. Just personally for me, I think it affected my ability to hear the vocals, because, you know, Sweet Lily Love has got a pretty voice and I like to hear it. I like the little bits of modulation we have occasionally as well. I enjoy it because, you know, Sweet Lily Love can sing. I just think that the mixing might have been a detriment to the vocals and me understanding the entirety of it. But the vast majority of it was good. I enjoyed the concepts and what we tried to implement. Was fantastic. It suited the rest of the theme well, the rest of the composition, because in regards to the theme, we basically had this kind of euphoric, jumpy, kind of like really charismatic background there with occasional minor tonalities there. But what I really appreciated was the situation we had with those lovely synth sequences and soaring leads, and the bass being full of life and pumping and really kind of rowdy, but not in an aggressive way. It was like a puppy that wanted to play. This entirety of the song was really exciting. And there wasn't a moment where I was like, man, I'm bored of this, I'm sick of it. I may not have looked particularly happy at some parts, but that's only because I felt a bit sad, because again, the stuff I talked about earlier with like the pumping, I feel mitigated the experience a little bit. You know, when I listened through this track, I go, okay, you know, we definitely had something special going on with the theme. We have a clear understanding of music theory and composition here. We worked with some really interesting major and minor tonalities, explored our scale shapes really well. The chords and harmonies that we had worked well for the style of music they were doing, but also I think initiated and instantiated the concept of going into the night and kind of soaring around and being sort of like that next level kind of vibe. And I think that's great. I think that's exactly what we need from this, and this is why I enjoy listening to Sweetly Love's music. Without bias, of course, because you can't have that as a music reviewer. That's for when I'm not reviewing it. But, you know, so, I mean, again, the choice of synths and the basses and the drum samples was good. I think that we also had a nice use of vocals, a subsidiary, secondary melodic layer there. And we had lots of little kind of boom, sort of those effects and like the trance music from like the 90s and 2000s and everything like that, and that kind of scooter-erish kind of stuff, you know, with the boom and that kind of Eurotrance aesthetic that positions itself well within this. I think the mystical, sort of mythological, outer-worldly stuff worked well with the theme of the track. I think that we had core melodic concepts here which worked well with the chord note bass groove and little sort of snare fills that brought itself up as per standard for the genre. Yeah, there was a lot to like and appreciate here, and I think it, for the most part, it worked really well. There wasn't anything that sort of struck me as being sort of out there or kind of, you know, too much. It's almost as if I want to say that I think there may have been like a little bit too much chaos in the first instance, where I was sort of wondering why we were going between some of the chord progressions and melodies or different sections as quickly as we were. It was like we were in a rush to go somewhere, and I feel as if we could have potentially sat on just a few more of these for a little bit longer without as much change, because I think that they were strong enough on their own to sit. But of course, if it's a stylistic thing, that's fine. You know, lengthwise 4:28 is fine for this. It's a good length. I wasn't bored at any point. I think there was enough to keep listeners entertained. I think it's great, you know, like when you've got a track about what the song is about, you kind of want it to be a little bit longer. As if the track isn't that long, you've got a really short journey through the stars, and that's kind of sad. Sweetly Love has proven herself as a music producer and as a musician over the last while, at least in my opinion, from when I have started reviewing her. I think that we can justify longer form tracks now. We can keep the listener involved there, especially if they're a fan of this genre. So kudos on that front. The production, recording, mixing, and mastering, I will attempt to not repeat more of what I've said earlier. I think that disregarding or, you know, extracting how I feel about the pumping of the kicks and everything and how they affected the vocals there, the treatment of the vocals was good. I could hear that they were recorded well, and I think for the most part we really hit those notes nicely, and any of the harmonica chorus effects that we used there, any of the more synthetic elements we had were handled well. There wasn't too much. It was almost like we could have potentially raised the dB of the vocals 0.25 at some points there. I know that's such a minuscule amount, but trust me, as you know, Sweetly Love, if you're watching this from mixer to mixer, I know sometimes that 0.25 is the difference. But yeah, there are other parts where the vocals are absolutely perfect and they were there. It's just they were interfered with by the sidechaining. I think that the rest of the instruments and the elements there were recorded really well. There's great samples here, great quality samples with really interesting tones and textures. The actual instrumental choice in the arrangement and composition was phenomenal. I loved it. I adored it. Got no complaints about the instrument choice there, aside from the sequencing of it and everything like that. But what I will say is that I think it's, you know, it's just checking how much the kick's interfering with the rest of it, the sensitivity of it. This could just be something we're getting used to and learning how to do more of, you know. I'm not saying that we're a beginner by any means, you know. We've clearly shown, Sweetly Love here has clearly shown that they have a firm understanding of music production and everything like that, through not only like the automation of those different synths and the panning and everything like that, but just the way that we managed to arrange things, you know, separating the sidechaining in a way that made a lot of coherent sense. It's nice. It's a very loud song. Very, very loud. I would have appreciated a little bit more dynamic range and changed the perceived loudness there within this without the need to automate the volume. I just think we could have taken away things occasionally, and not in a way where because we did do that, but it's like taking things away in a way that kind of quietens it down, and more so than it had, or at least we needed a little bit less. You know, these are things. It's tricky to like say, because sometimes people just want to have the bass go boom, 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 boom. They want it to kind of thud. And I get it. Maybe these headphones are a little bit weird with how they're treating the vocals. You know, for the most part, I'm very, very happy with Nuit by Sweet Little Love. Hopefully you enjoyed this track. I genuinely do appreciate the work that was done within this. I think it's a great song. You know, aside from the things I mentioned, I think that it's got a lot of potential, and I wish Sweet Little Love the best of luck in future. If you enjoyed this review, please do go check out Sweet Little Love's various social medias, and I think they've got a website and everything like that. And stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.